going on, everyone? The Utah Jazz have a lot of questions and things that they need to address in this upcoming offseason, right? Primarily, what are they going to do with this team? They have a lot of pieces that just don't seem to work, that don't seem to fit. There's always the potential of Utah running it back and hoping that maybe this new coach can kind of come in and fix things. But Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell don't seem to be that pairing that's going to last for very long. Even if they run it back for another year, very likely that duo is going to break up. But the other question is Mike Conley. What do they do with Mike Conley? Do the Utah Jazz go and make a trade and try to recoup whatever assets or anything that they can get for Mike Conley, or do they try to implement him and run it back? Well, one team that is being reported as having interest in Mike Conley is the Los Angeles Clippers. Apparently, the Los Angeles Clippers want to trade for Mike Conley with the intent to have him come off the bench, which is a little surprising because they do have Reggie Jackson, who was fantastic for the Clippers the last few years, and they just, hasn't happened yet, but it is reported that John Wall is supposed to go to the Clippers as soon as his buyout is official and everything works out. He's going to go there. So you got to imagine, John Wall, let's say, is your starter. You have Reggie Jackson as your backup. Do you really need Mike Conley? Now, I think personally, part of this is the Clippers just have too many players. And I know that might sound a little silly and a little ridiculous, but it is possible to have too much depth from a team standpoint. You have this just unbelievably deep roster that is just ridiculous, but you're going to have a lot of DNPs. And once you get to the playoffs, you're only running usually 8 guys. And I know Ty Lue, he's one of those guys that really likes to play multiple guys. And, if the young guy is hot, you keep him in. And, and he has no problem running 10-man rotations and stuff. But in reality, that's probably not going to benefit you, especially deeper in the playoffs. If you're going up against the Warriors, you probably want your best 5 on the court as much as possible, or your best 8 guys on the court as much as possible. And so I would imagine that the Clippers are going to see and be big players in this offseason, just primarily because they have so many guys that they could package 2 or 3 of these mid-tier guys and go get one mid-tier guy that may be a better need. Now, I don't think point guard is a need for the Clippers. That's why this is a little surprising that this report is happening. I think that they are better off packaging a couple of those guys and going and getting like a real center. They did just, extend Zoo, which, he's solid, but I don't know if he is the guy. He has his moments. He has, the Clippers absolutely love him, but I feel like he's the guy that you want to kind of be your backup, and you go get somebody else, like especially the Pacers. Like the Pacers, I think Miles Turner is obtainable. And if you could give up some of your young guys, maybe give up some assets, and then give up like a Marcus Morris just to make salaries match and go and get somebody like that, I think that would be the better option. Do a 3-for-1 swap. But I imagine the Clippers are going to look for something along those lines, especially with guys like John Wall. And you got to think, it would be nice for them to have a spot open for the buyout market in case, that mid-tier big-name guy gets bought out and the Clippers are really good, which I imagine the Clippers are very likely going to be one of, if not the best team in the league. Just looking at the roster, it's ridiculous. My one concern is health. As long as they are healthy, I think that they have a monstrous team. They have a great coach, great organization. This isn't the Clippers of old. As much as it pains me to say as a Laker fan, it's not. Completely different coach, completely different culture, completely different owner, everything. But I think that the Clippers are going to have to make some moves. And signing Mike Conley, I think would be a great pickup for them. I think he is a guy, he has experience. He's a guy that can lead your offense. He's a guy that can, would be an incredible backup. I think he'd be one of the best backup point guards in the league. But one, is that something that he would want to do? I would imagine John Wall signed with the Clippers with the intent of like, I can go there and be the starter because, Reggie Jackson is a starter, but he's not really like more of a traditional point guard where I can go in and I could be the real facilitator. And Mike Conley would be that as well. But if you get in John Wall, you have Reggie Jackson, unless you're moving Reggie Jackson for a Mike Conley, like let's say, that's the route they go and they just want that more veteran experience type of guy. They look at it as like, we don't really need the scoring. We need more of the facilitator, which I think that could make a ton of sense because it would be nice for the Clippers to have like these facilitating point guards, given that, like Paul George, he can play make a little bit. Kawhi, he has his moments, but he's never been a legit passing threat. You know, he's only had 3 10-assist games his entire career. He has under 3 assists average for his entire career. He does have games, he does have moments, but for the most part, he is a guy that, like, when he gets the ball, he's getting the ball to put it in the hoop, which is what his job is, which is what you want. So it would be nice to get guys that are less selfish, that don't really need to score, that don't really care, that, you know, can hit the outside shot, things like that. I think Mike Conley really fits what the Clippers could want and need. I just look at the roster and I'm just like, I don't know, like, how that fit would be. But you never know. I mean, who knows what the Clippers have in mind? Who knows what is really going on? What the Utah Jazz, I think it also comes down to, like, what do they want from Mike Conley? You know, would they want something like a Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, and, you know, another piece or something? Maybe Coffee. You give him Coffee as, like, oh, here's, like, the younger guy, you know, that you have. And you go and get a Mike Conley. And maybe they look at it as, like, okay, we have the Reggie Jackson as the point guard. He can be a scorer and sort of take the burden away from Donovan Mitchell. I could see that. You know, they're kind of looking at it like that. And they're like, okay, well, we got Marcus Morris who can play defense. You know, he can knock down shots. He's a guy that can get, you know, 15 to 20 a game. Maybe that's kind of their thinking, is like, we got the versatile forward. We got, a scoring guard, but we need that with Donovan, so that way Donovan doesn't have to put up, you know, 50 a night. You know, and then we got this young guy in Coffee. I could see them maybe being interested in something like that, or just maybe just taking that just for the fresh start, just to say, like, okay, like, we're locked into this contract, it's not working, like, this team isn't working, let's do something to kind of shake it up. You know, maybe something along those lines could actually take place. But as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think about the Clippers potentially trading for Mike Conley? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think, like, yeah, like, that makes perfect sense, especially if you're giving up a Reggie Jackson, something like that? Or do you think, like, no, you're about to sign John Wall, you know, you have Reggie Jackson, you don't need another point guard, especially a guy that's making as much as he is, things like that. The luxury the Clippers have, though, that, like, teams like the Lakers, for example, and stuff don't have, is, like, they have all these, like, mid-tier contracts. So they're all very tradable contracts, and they don't really have any bad contracts. They're all pretty fair value, and that is always really good when you're trying to go get like those 3-for-1 swaps for, like, a mid-tier guy, a guy that can really come in and make a real impact. You know, that's always good to have those mid-tier guys. Like a team like the Lakers, they have Kendrick Nunn and THT, and that's it. And then everything else is, you know, either huge max contracts and, like, Westbrook, Davis, and LeBron, or they're just vet minimum contracts, which you're not going to be able to trade. So, like, the Clippers are in a very unique situation, which is why I think they're going to be big players. I don't think they're going to force or rush any trade, but I think if the right trade is on the table, they definitely pull the trigger. Question is Mike Conley, as a trade partner, that right trade for the Clippers to, you know, actually pull the trigger and make that deal? You know, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.